Welcome back to Guitar Made Simple. I'm Brian Metzger. The first action step is going to have three parts. To learn the strings, then we're going to learn the fingers, then we're going to learn the frets. These three components each make up the address of every note that's on the fretboard. So this is a foundational building block. This is going to apply to everything that we learn on guitar. If you get this down, then you can play anything that I ask you to play. Okay, so the first part is the strings. Each one of the strings is going to have a number and a letter. So I'm going to ask you to play and say the first string with me. 1. Play and say 1. Now play and say the next string. 2. And on 3, 4, 5, 6. So these numbers, these string numbers will apply no matter where you're looking up lessons. If they're referring to the strings as numbers and they say 1, it's always going to be in this order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In addition to each string having a number that refers to it, it also has a letter. And so I'm going to start at the other side now, at the bottom with the lowest note, and that's E. I'm going to do it in groups of 3. So play and say with me, E, A, D. Play and say E, A, D. E, A, D. And then the next 3, G, B, E. G, B, E. Excellent. So now an exercise, an action step that you can take to master that is to play starting with the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then go back and say the letters E, A, D, G, B, E. Now for those letters E, A, D, G, B, E, one of the mnemonic devices that I use is read good books every day. So the word read has the first 3 letters in it, E, A, D. So read, and then the next good books every day, if you take the first letter of good, you get your G, first letter of books, you get your B, and first letter of every day, and you get your E. Read good books every day, E, A, D, G, B, E. But the exercise that I'd like to ask you to commit to playing every day to review it, make sure you have it rock solid, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the other way with the letters, E, A, D, G, B, E. All right, that's the first action step for the foundation. The next step has to do with your fingers. So each one of your fingers has has a number, just like the strings, they all have numbers. All your fingers have numbers, and they have a name. So this is going to be simple reinforcement, but we'll just connect the dots, just make sure everything's in place and nothing's overlooked to keep learning guitar as simple as possible. So the first finger is called 1, 2, 3, 4. So each finger has a number. As well, each finger has a name: index, middle, ring, pinky. And so if I asked you to point to your first finger, you could point to your first finger, ring finger, second finger, pinky, first finger, third finger, and you can go back and forth, and you can quiz one another with that, and make sure that anytime I refer to a finger, put your first finger there, put your fourth finger there, put your second finger there, put your third finger there, that you'll know which finger you're referring to. I could call it by its name or its number. All right, so that's the strings, that's the fingers, and the final exercise has to do with the frets. Now with the frets, there's a rule that you're not allowed to count frets. And here's the secret to never having to count frets again. And this is going to help your learning process to be accelerated. You're going to learn so much faster once you realize that you don't need to count frets. Okay, so the way to do that is if you memorize 5, you can navigate the whole fretboard. So the 5 frets that you need to memorize they're odd numbers: 3, 5, 7, 9. That's the pattern that begins it. Patterns are powerful because they predict what's going to happen next. But in order for a pattern to be the most effectively used, you need to know where does the pattern break down. And that final number is 12. So 3, 5, 7, 9 are your odd numbers, and then one even number is 12. 3, 5, 7, 9, and 12. Now let's locate those frets on the guitar. They are going to be, most of those will be identified with a dot that's present on it. So 3, even though my guitar doesn't have a dot here, up top here I do have a dot. Some of your guitars may, some of them may not. Your guitar is not broken if it doesn't have that, that's okay. You can tell if you know where 5 is, it's very easy to find 3. So 3 is the first dot, 3, 5, 7, 9. Now those first 4, your odd number dots, all happen right here. Then finally, here's your 12, and it's a little bit different. You notice here I have 2 dots. I also have 2 dots up here. The guitars may or may not have any different indication that this is the even numbered, the only even numbered fret on the whole guitar, but many of them do. And so even if there's no indication, some guitars have no marking on the front of the fret and no marking on the side, and you can still learn your way around it. But of course, with the markings, it makes it much easier. So with this fret here, one thing that you can identify is the 12 has 2 blanks before it and 2 blanks after it. So that helps you to zero in the event that your 12th fret isn't marked clearly. All right, so excellent. That's the first part of learning the frets, and so that you will never have to count frets. And in fact, I forbid the counting of frets. If I see you counting frets, I'll call you out on it. So then the exercise to practice this is simply, I'll say the name of one of the either 3, 5, 7, 9, or 12, and then you point to it and you see how quickly you can locate it. So 3, 5, 3, 7, 3, 9, 3, 12, 9, 12, 7, 9, 5, 7, 3. So just call out one of those numbers and see how quickly you can find it. Can you find the 9th fret that quickly? All right, so 9, 5, 7, 3, 9, 5, 12, 7, 9, 5, 7, 3. That's your quiz for that. Then the second part of being able to translate that now into every fret on the fretboard is the +1 rule. And so I want to make the rule, even though there's other ways that you can calculate it, there's other ways that you can do this, I want to make the rule as simple as possible by using it as consistently as possible. So every single time I'm going to ask you to use the +1 rule. So how do you do the +1? Point to the 4th fret and tell me how you got there. So 3 + 1, 6. 5 + 1, 7, 8 + 8, 7 + 1, 10, 9 + 1, 6, 5 + 1, 8, 7 + 1, 4, 3 + 1, 10, 9 + 1, 8, 7 + 1, 6, 5 + 1. So even if I were to say 2, I want you to say 1 + 1. There's only one exception to the rule, and that's the 11th fret. For that one, I'll allow you to use a -1. You can just point to 12, 11, 12 - 1. All right, so practice those both the odd numbers and the even numbers using the +1 rule. All right, so that's the foundation. That's the foundation building block to make guitar simple. And if you have each one of these, if you have memorized the strings, your fingers, and the frets, those form the 3 components of every note on the fretboard. So now when I ask you to play something, I'll say some combination of the string, the fret number, and the finger. If you have those 3 things, you know exactly what finger to put in what place on what string on your fretboard. So let's practice that. Index finger, 3rd fret, A string. How quickly did you get there? Middle finger, 3rd fret, A string. Ring finger, 3rd fret, A string. See how easy this is? Pinky, 3rd fret, A string. All right, so that's that exercise. Practice that. And that will, even though you're playing the same note, you'll teach each finger to get familiar with what it feels like in the fret. Let's try another one. Low E, third fret, index finger. Low E, 3rd fret, middle finger. Low E, 3rd fret, ring finger. Low E, 3rd fret, pinky. All right, so go through those. Let's try another one. A string, 5th fret, index finger. A string, 5th fret, middle finger. A string, 5th fret, ring finger. A string, 5th fret, pinky. Practice that. Let each finger feel what it is to play that note. Now likewise, low E, 5th fret, index, middle, ring, pinky. Let each finger feel. All right, two more notes to practice, but practice it with each finger, and that's the 7th fret of the A string. And then the 7th fret of the E string. Okay, so before you go on to the next lesson, please practice this, get this down. Make sure you have down the strings, the fingers, and the frets. Now, without saying any more about it, I'm anchoring those notes for a reason. If you're wondering why I picked those notes, I want you to become particularly familiar with the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th fret. All right, we'll see you in the next lesson.